Come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land.
I think that every black person in the United States should visit and see where humanity came from, the strength that we never had.
The strength that Cynthia is speaking of stems from the pain and torture her ancestors were forced to endure while being held captive in the dungeons of Cape Coast Castle. Male and female Africans were sold into slavery by African kings in exchange for goods. European dealers used Africans as free labor. Cape Coast Castle itself took 60 years to construct and was built by African slaves. Once they arrived in Cape Coast, they were put in chains and crammed into dungeons, forever alienating them from their families. For over 300 years, Africans lived in these dark dungeons with very little light and just a few holes for ventilation. 1,000 men and 500 women were crammed into tiny cells at a time. The European traders brought them to Cape Coast before shipping them away to Europe and the Americas. The men and women were separated before they entered the dungeons. They were piled in their dungeons where they literally did everything. In 1974, American excavators discovered that at one time there was 6 feet of human waste piled up and stored along these walls. Although Cape Coast Castle hasn't housed slaves since the late 19th century, the stench of menstruation still permeates the female dungeon.
It's almost like hell, something that you prayed that you would never face in life, just to smell the odor.
They spent 6 to 12 weeks captive in the dungeons, depending on the time of the ship's arrival. Although Africans were involuntarily forced to migrate from their homeland, one native African says Europeans could not strip them of their innate African features.
I live in the United States, and I have friends, and you see them and you know they are from Ghana.
How?
Just their features.
Historians estimate that approximately 15 million slaves passed through Cape Coast Castle for the horrific Middle Passage through the Atlantic. Now, the door of no return is the exact place where Africans left behind a life that they knew. For a life of the unknown, a life of many, many years of sadness, and a life of hundreds and hundreds of years of slavery. Reporting for ETV News, I'm Erica Ayisi.
It's even difficult to determine whose fault is it when injustice had happened in the distant past, but the effect remains. Now, we the Africans, the Europeans, the Americans, Christians, Muslims, chiefs, parents, and everybody has to consider the part that each played in the long chain of historical injustice. And let's all vow henceforth that humanity on this earth will never again perpetrate such injustice.